I'm going to say two words now that I know will turn the comment section of this video into an absolute cesspit. George Soros.
Sponsored by George Soros, it seems.
We believe George Soros is behind it because his company was involved in it.
And I just want to tell Soros this: you need to die. I'm not going to kill you. I don't want anybody, because I don't turn you into a martyr. I'm saying you're going to burn in hell.
Soros' name has become something of a slogan from the far right, who use it to attack pretty much anything they don't like. He gets blamed for every protest, social movement, or piece of political activism. Trump suggested that Soros was behind the refugees on the southern border. Fox News blamed Soros for all the Black Lives Matter protests. General Flynn, I think, suggested that Soros was behind the COVID epidemic. And most recently, the owner of Twitter, Elon Musk, tweeted that Soros hates humanity. So it's worth asking the question, who is George Soros and why do people hate him so much?
You cannot say anything bad on George Soros.
To start with, we had to go back to 1930 Hungary, where Soros was born into a reasonably well-off Jewish family. And a few years later, during Nazi occupation, he and his family managed to escape the worst of the Holocaust by essentially pretending to be Christian. A few years later, after the end of the war, and Hungary found itself behind the Iron Curtain, Soros eventually fled the Soviet Union and travelled to London, where he studied economics, began working for a bank, ended up working for a hedge fund, and then eventually created his own hedge fund and inevitably became a millionaire. He is the quintessential self-made millionaire. Soros understood that his success was tied to the fact that he was able to flee the oppressive Soviet Union and ultimately thrive in the liberal capitalist democracy of the UK. He believed that democracy succeeded because of the free and fair exchange of ideals. He believed that freedom of speech was the essential cornerstone of progressive ideals. And he personally witnessed how nationalism and communism suppressed the human spirit. He believed that it was his obligation to use his wealth to spread the ideals of freedom and openness. So he established the Open Society Foundation, a philanthropic organization that funded pro-democracy movements across the Soviet Union and also in China. And in 1991, when the Soviet Union collapsed, he continued to fund pro-democracy and anti-nationalist political parties across Eastern Europe. The hope was that all these former Soviet Union client states, including his homeland of Hungary, could eventually adopt these free, open, liberal ideologies and political institutions that Western Europe had. In the US, Soros was actually fairly politically neutral for most of his life. It wasn't actually until 2004 that Soros donated to a presidential campaign. See, Soros was against George W. Bush's 2003 invasion of Iraq. Even though he agreed with the idea of spreading democracy, he did not believe that it was something that could be achieved by a military force. So in the 2004 election, Soros donated to Democratic candidate John Kerry. He then went on to contribute to Barack Obama's presidential campaign. He obviously opposed Donald Trump, but he's also against things like the war on drugs. He believes the criminal justice system is often used to oppress marginalized communities. So he has been known to contribute to the political campaigns of local politicians and DAs that look to remove things like mandatory sentencing or are seeking to decriminalize certain drugs. He's donated a lot of money towards minority groups. He funds countless anti-racism campaigns, which inevitably include some groups associated with Black Lives Matter. He's also been quite vocal in his condemnation of the Israeli government and their treatment of the Palestinian people. And most recently, Soros donated $1 billion to create education campaigns across the world to combat nationalism. So I get it. Soros is a billionaire and he's using his money to donate to causes he wants to advance. And it's totally understandable that his values may not align with yours. But the world, and the US in particular, is full of billionaires that use their money to donate to causes and try and advance their belief system. So why is Soros so different? Well, to start with, he's a progressive billionaire, and there aren't that many of them. But also, let's take a step back and let's look at the enemies he's made. Soros spent decades funding pro-democracy movements across the post-Soviet world. Can you imagine how much of a nemesis this guy is for every single Eastern European authoritarian dictator? But equally, Soros's money provides a ghost for these dictators to dismiss any perceived opposition to their power. Every single popular uprising and revolution in Eastern Europe is routinely and persistently just simply dismissed as a Soros-funded and manifested and manufactured coup. What easier way is there to respond to the sight of hundreds of thousands of your citizens protesting against you in the streets than to simply dismiss them as the paid actors of one George Soros? It enables dictators to completely ignore the demands of millions of countrymen yearning for democracy and freedom by simply stating those desires aren't real, it's all George Soros. It's a tactic that has been adopted so cleverly by conservative America. Those refugees on the southern border, they're not actually the desperate, huddled masses fleeing the horrors of their homeland, risking their lives and the lives of their family just to seek safety in America. No, they're the paid servants of George Soros. It enables anyone who subscribes to the ridiculous conspiracy theory to immediately dismiss the plight of these refugees without having to consider for a moment the morality of the situation. It is rich sugar to cognitive dissonance. Do these refugees make you feel uncomfortable? You could help them, or you just believe that they're not real. Do these black activists angry about centuries of unresolved systemic racism, do they make you feel uncomfortable? You could listen to them, or you could just believe that they're the paid actors of George Soros. Additionally, by consistently pushing this nebulous narrative that Soros's money is associated with some kind of nefarious evil, they're making it difficult for Democratic candidates to actually accept campaign donations from him. They're essentially trying to poison the well. There's another layer to the hatred of George Soros that we really have to address. And before I do, I will acknowledge the fact that accusations of anti-Semitism are often used to blunt criticism, either of the Israeli government or powerful people that just happen to be Jewish. But this is different. The fact that an old Jewish man has been placed at the center of this global conspiracy, this elite that are nefariously controlling the world, it's not an accident. To be clear, I am not saying that everyone who criticizes George Soros is anti-Semitic. I'm saying the reason why he exists in your mind as this conniving, conspiring protagonist is because of long propagated anti-Semitic narratives. Remember, it's always the Jews that control the world from the dark shadows, these globalists that seek to dismantle national identity. And why the Jews? Well, for centuries, the Jews were often not considered citizens of the countries they inhabited. They were perceived as stateless, exiled from their native Palestinian lands. For every Russian Tsar, British Prime Minister, and German Führer, what better scapegoat for every domestic problem than those who lived amongst us but are not us? And what better scapegoat for every single American problem than an old Jewish man who wasn't even born there?
Okay, so George Soros is this foreign-born left-wing guy who essentially wants to change the nature of our country.
Soros and his globalist cabal.
And so guess what? He becomes the puppet to Soros.
Soros is intent on destroying our government for some sick reason of his that goes back to his sick background.
It's this idea that a Jewish elite care more about money than they do their country that remains today a very thinly veiled racist trope.
I really do believe that money is the root of all evil, and I think that George Soros is a person that cares passionately about money. I think he cares about becoming successful. I don't think hate is enough to drive George Soros. Of course, at the core of this is always hate, right? You have to hate America. You have to hate American society, or at least not care for it very much. But this
The stupidest part about all of this is even if you don't agree with Soros and the causes he's trying to advance, the idea that he's doing this out of greed or to secure power somehow, the guy is 90 years old. He's given away 65% of his wealth. When's the payout?